a retired homicide detective. I've interviewed thousands of people, from serial killers to ministers. Welcome to the interview room. Welcome to the interview room, everybody, on this wonderful Wednesday. You guys all look amazing. I hope you're doing well, and all of the holidays went great for everybody, and the Mother's Day, and hopefully you got time to spend with your families. And those of you that didn't get an opportunity, you've been in our prayers, and God bless you, that hopefully you had a great day as well. A lot going on, as we all know. A lot going on. I mean, I cannot believe how much movement has been going quickly, and not only in true crime, but just in the world as a whole. I've got another class coming up. I'm going to be in Phoenix, Arizona, and then Albuquerque, New Mexico, for, again, the Bureau of Indian Affairs training on the Native American women who are missing. Almost 1,500 in this country, and almost 6,000, actually about 6,500 total across North America, up and even including Alaska and Canada. So we are still doing a lot of work there. Those of you that have been on our channel for a while know that we had Justin on here, and a while back, he is the commander of the missing and murdered Indigenous women. And it got me thinking. Actually, Karen and I, we started talking about this most recently, and now, we saw this case that everybody's been following, Madeline Kingsbury, but I'm scratching my head, guys. I'm scratching my head going, what is going on here? I mean, just a short list off the top of my head here, right? And by the way, there are thousands and thousands of missing women in this country. But it just seems that recently, with the advances of technology, that there seems to be a common thread on a lot of the cases that we've been following and watching here, right? And I'm only talking in the U.S. I'm not talking worldwide, because I know this is a worldwide epidemic. And so, here's a couple of names, right? Madeline, Maya, Suzanne, D, Ann Walsh, Kelly Brennan, Rose Bly, Heather Kelly up in Michigan, Mary Johnson, Davis, and then, Danielle Moss, just to name a few women who have a common denominator. And what we're going to talk about is that common denominator, and that is a male presence / either husband and or domestic partner that has gone, involved some way or another. There seems to be a circle in what we're going to talk about tonight. And so let me put a banner up real fast because I want everybody to know right up front, we're going to be talking about DV, and we're going to talk about what are some of the things, the signs that you can look for and your daughters can look for and your granddaughters and you in your relationships, all of us. And this goes, right across the board. It doesn't matter where you live or, what your socioeconomic situation is, because what we're seeing here is this situation that we're looking at here now, right, Madeline? Here is a mom from Minnesota, 2 children, and we're gonna talk not specifically about her case, but we're going to talk about the 8 stages of a development in a relationship development that may or may not have led up to her demise. And she's 26 years old, again, mother of 2. She disappears March 31st, 2023, after dropping her kids off at daycare. She goes by Maddie, and she's a clinical research coordinator at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. She has a bachelor's degree of science in public health and healthcare administration. So this woman is like dialed in, and she's taking care of her 2 children. She's working on her master's degree from the University of Minnesota at the time of her disappearance. So she's got children and she's got brains and she's got a stable job. But what she doesn't have, it appears, is a stable relationship. And so we're gonna talk a little bit about why that could be. She was working on clinical trials with investigative drugs and medical devices. She's very smart, very accomplished, and she has a clear plan for her successful future. Her children, her ex-boyfriend, was with her allegedly on the day of her disappearance and was the last person to see her. Police say her disappearance currently is suspicious and involuntary, quote unquote. She had sole custody of her children, and her ex took the kids after she disappeared, and there apparently appears to be a custody battle between Maddie, her parents, and the ex-boyfriend over the 5-year-old and 2-year-old child that they have together. Her parents say the boyfriend knows more about the disappearance than he's letting on, and the police are saying that this is a suspicious disappearance. When he had the kids, he didn't allow them to see Maddie's family, which is a huge red flag, a la Maya. They're still fighting for those children, even to this day. He's the ex-boyfriend, and he wasn't letting the children see the family, so they were taken into protective custody, and there was recently a court hearing about that. He's denied any involvement in her disappearance, and it was revealed in court that they are investigating him in her disappearance. So he's not been charged with anything, and I'm not going to name him. I'm not going to give him the credit tonight. In a statement issued by his attorney, though, he said, "I do not have anything to do with Maddie's disappearance. I want their mother, my 5-year-old and 2-year-old, to be found and brought home safely. I want that more than anything else. The only thing we're missing is a video, a la Suzanne Moore. A decision in the custody will be expected soon. and it will be made at a court appearance on June 6th. On the day of her disappearance, Maddie drove her kids in a minivan, a 2014 blue Chrysler Town and Country minivan, to daycare, dropped them off around 8:15 and returned to her home. And at that time, the boyfriend said he left in her minivan around 10 a.m. that day, and when he returned later that day, she was not home, i.e. a bike ride. Police believe the van was seen driving during the time frame of 10 a.m. and 1 p.m., and it took the route of County Road 12 and Highway 43 in Winona County. Then it drove south on Highway 43 through the eastern part of Fillmore County. Later, the van drove back to Winona on Highway 43, and then the van was parked outside of Maddie's house at approximately since approximately 1:30 on the day of her disappearance. They found her phone, her jacket that she wore that morning, and her wallet inside of her house. There was nothing indicating she walked away or got into another car. Police and Maddie's family have extensively searched along Highway 43 in both Winona and Fillmore counties, and no trace of Maddie has been found to date. Local residents were asked to check their lands, wooded properties, outbuildings, vehicles, and trails for anything suspicious. Residents were asked to check any cameras on the property. Absolutely unacceptable. Again, people just do not disappear out of their houses and or out of their environments. As you know, in the Suzanne Morphew case, there was unknown male DNA in the Range Rover and under the helmet, allegedly. But my assumption on the stuff on the helmet was it's degradable, and so it says male. So quite frankly, it could be any male. The other stuff is in her vehicle. And, the question, though, is, how did that get there? And there's always the other question is, well, how does the electronics line up, the phone pings with the helmet and the phone ping? And the last time I checked, she took a bicycle. She wasn't in a Range Rover. So I find that rather interesting chain of events in the Suzanne Morphew case. A lot going on in D. Warner's. They've searched some property. The case has been turned over to the Michigan State Police, and they have turned it over to the DA. So Billy and I at some point will be giving you guys an update on that. But here we are again with Maddie. So what are we going to talk about tonight? I'm going to talk about the 8 stages of progression into intimate partner homicide. This was some research. This was research done by Dr. James Mogden Smith, who is a friend. And I want you guys and gals to get your daughters to watch this program, please. I want you to please know that this information potentially could save their life. This is research that is solid. And these are we're going to go over the 8 steps tonight. The 8 steps. And I want to, before I get kicked off here, I want to thank Elle Hillebrand for becoming a member, as well as Maria. Hold your comments, or excuse me, your questions, because we can get to those. But you guys all know me. You've been around me long enough to, when I start getting focused, I truly believe that one too many names on the earlier list that I went through is just too much. too many. And so we're going to break this down. And the reason I'm doing this again is for obvious reasons, but I don't think we could ever do enough of this because it doesn't appear that the situation is getting easier in terms of the suspects are learning from each other. Because I think we see some correlation between Maya and Suzanne. I think we see correlation between Maya, Suzanne, and Dee. I think we see correlation between Kelly, Ann, and Rose was before, but she's just vanished. And then, each one of these women have the common denominator here is there is a boyfriend and or a significant other involved in their life. And so we're going to dive deep into it. Just though as a house cleaning item, obviously Koberger was indicted on all four murder charges in the death of Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan. And that means there will be no preliminary hearing in June. They took them to a grand jury, which was awesome. And again, my theory was right that I put out there about the defense. They were just trying to go around the gag order. It's obvious now. And so the DA threw him a curveball and took him right to the grand jury. So now we're in pretrial processes. There was over 20,000 pieces of evidence that were dropped off at the defense attorney's desk. And in that, there was a comment I heard from the DA that says, hey, if you guys have, exculpatory evidence about your client, we didn't see it, but please bring it forward. We'd love to take a look. And of course, it's been crickets, since that pushback. So just as we said, the defense was trying to go around the gag order by utilizing the affidavits. And so 20,000 pieces of evidence now against Brian. And I will submit to you we're going to see a lot of information come out. As I said a long time ago, even before I had Coop and everybody else on here and Dr. Bricado, et cetera, you guys all know, you can go back and watch the videos. I said, the first thing that drew my attention to that house was that voyeurism capability of whoever the suspect was. So we're going to see some stuff, in my opinion, come out that's going to be a chilling effect. The media outlets are also suing to lift the gag order. So we'll see where that's going to go. Okay, so let's get into our program tonight about step one, pre-relationship history. Karen has a philosophy that I've heard her say many times to not only our children, but to other women and daughters about men are like buses. And what she means by that is when you stand, at a bus stop and you look up and you look at your watch, and it gives you a time when this on the schedule when that bus is coming. And at some point, you're going to see the bus coming and you're going to see the destination. So she gives the analogy of that's what boys tell you when they start in the initial phases of relationships. They're going to take you to different places, et cetera, et cetera. So her counsel's always been that, you have to look closely at who's driving the bus. And as it pulls up, you now have a choice. You can either get on that bus and go potentially to that destination, or you can wait for another bus that will be right on schedule to come on by. And she tells the story, and in my opinion, it's extremely wise, about before you get on that bus, that you have to do one thing. You have got to lift up the baggage compartment. And if you're putting in really nice suitcases, and you see in there a cooler, and this is my part, with duct tape and a motor, and it's a beer cooler, and it's got a little, a steering wheel thing, like a scooter, you may want to think about where that bus is going to go. And, as a result of that, you have a choice of whether or not you're going to try to fix that cooler and that bus driver. I will tell you, my many years in law enforcement and my many cases that I've worked, that they're broken once they're broken. And so some of these individuals start looking for relationships where they're hoping they can manipulate somebody into fixing them, for lack of a better term. And so that's the pre-relationship history. One of the things we have to do is look deep into an individual's life when you first meet them. If they, and there's two ways of doing that. The first way is obviously asking them an open question, such as, tell me about your life. Because that question in itself will invoke a really interesting response. And when when I do that in an interview, for an example, I always say, so tell me a little bit about your life. Well, the reason I do that is because those of you who have been with me from the beginning, and we love you and thank you so much for everything you've done for getting us to where we are today, including our mods. I mean, Miss Sophia, Maui Girl, Trisam, and Mimi J2. We couldn't have done any of this without you. And you girls, you women know that when I say we live three lives, that's true. We live our public life, our private life, and our secret life. All sin, all crime evolve and live in the secret life. So if I just say, tell me a little bit about yourself, let's say if you were going to go on a pre-date, for an example, and you say to the guy, or you're texting, tell me a little bit about yourself. They're automatically going to answer in the public persona. You will get the answer in a public persona. You will not get the secret life. And this is where the history of domestic abuse, stalking, arrest, all that is in there, in that secret life. Where have they ever been controlling? Have they ever been previously arrested for domestic violence? Do they have the inability to accept a challenge? And they're thin-skinned and they're confrontational. Okay? So step one is to flush out this first slide. Okay? Because it's critical that you do it early. And when you flush things out quickly, you have to make a decision. And that decision is, see you later. Because you're not going to fix it. Okay. So in the secret life is where step one resides heavily. Step two within this personality is this idea of early commitment, i.e., control. Without the rest of the relationship developing. Okay? Without the rest of the relationship developing. So they immediately want to go to, hey, let's live together. Maybe there's a child potentially involved. But they declare their declarations of love in very possessive language. So on Twitter during the courting phase, it's, you're mine, we're together forever. Those are the kind of red flags from step one to step two that you want to be quickly aware of. Okay? These are danger signs. They're very transitional danger signs. The guy wants to push for a very early commitment, etc. They're extremely possessive. That's a sign of extensive insecurity within themselves in the secret life. They're off balance, yet they project this persona of control, organization around you, but others, like your girlfriends, like your friends, would describe them as, just not being there. Something's off. Listen to your friends during this phase of an early relationship. Count on your gut to tell you what that is meaning internally for you. Because you have to follow it. You have to follow it. And it starts to manifest itself very quickly through what has been described as the jealousy or early stage. A guy who is extremely jealous of who you're talking to. Where were you? I tried calling you. Not out of fear that they were worried about you, but that they lost you. And so what they'll do is they'll pick up the pace of that relationship, and they'll start to resist your attempts to slow everything down. They'll want to make relationships quickly within inside of your family. This is step two of the 8 stages. So extreme control is not flattery, like Karen's just said here. It becomes suffocating. Yes, exactly, Mimi. They're overwhelming. My wife will tell you, even when we first met, I was that guy who said, "Go accomplish your dreams. What do you need to do? How do you need to do it? How can I support you?" And I supported her, and she, she's even to this day. I mean, she's in the chat here. She is an amazing woman who has accomplished amazing things. And Now, this is not going to be a beat down on all guys. I'm just talking about a specific type of personality, because there are a billion guys, I hope, that don't have these traits. But when you see these traits and teach your daughters, especially in today's technology world, where these guys are love bombing almost instantly, I cannot believe some of the stuff I see on social media in relationship to guys just walking up to girls on college campuses and asking them extremely intimate details about their personal lives. And these young women are just handing them the phone. When the guy says, "Can I have your number?" and they hand it to him and say, "Yeah, sure." Okay. I mean, this is the generation where, didn't we say, put the computer in the kitchen so we could see what was going on online? And you've got to maintain that vigilance as a parent, as a grandparent, as a mom, as a dad, to your daughters about being vigilant. And when the right guy comes around, you're going to know, but they'll know first, and they'll know. But they cannot ignore these warning signs. They can't do it today. They cannot do it. It's just too much, too dangerous. Step 3, what is called relationship behaviors or risk markers. Huge flags. Huge flags. So we're going to go through them. Coercive control. Hey, I tried calling you. Where were you? And now you're put into a defensive posture as if you've done something wrong, but you left your phone at home and you went to the grocery store, or you met your girlfriend for lunch. Okay. The next one here is obvious. Stalking. You're out for lunch with your girlfriends and you look around and he shows up. You know who that happened to? Suzanne Morphew. A lot. A lot. Okay. Low-level violence, such as pushing and shoving, that can increase rapidly to high-level violence. Rapidly. One of the indicators, when I saw the picture of Gabby Petito and Brian, the picture that he took where he held her by the neck in the photograph. Red flag. During the initial phases of courtship. Red flag. Because that is a 110,000% mechanism of control. The throat. We used to call that the C-clamp. And dominant males C-clamp their opponents. I don't know if you guys ever saw the show. I think it's called Killer Sally. She was the bodybuilder in the Marine Corps, and she killed her husband, shot him in the face. Well, the two detectives that worked that was our agency. That was Chris Sogene and Sheila Potkinjak. And I did the crime scene in that case. It was on Netflix, I think, recently. I think it's called Killer Sally. Long story short, she blasted him from a roid rage, and they used to get into domestic fights where they would both C-clamp each other around the neck during the fight. She would reach out and grab his neck, and he would reach out and grab her neck. And this is like huge red flag for anyone. If you know somebody in a relationship and they're confiding in you, hey, this is what's been going on, please call this number down below there, 800-799-7233. It could save her life. Just don't hold it in confidence as a girlfriend. I mean, sit down with her and say, look, we need to work through this somehow. And it could be a very difficult conversation, but bring her to this video and all the other resources to the National Domestic Violence website and call this number down below there. Have her call that number. You could save her life. And it would be amazing if you did. The SA aggression is pretty obvious. Intimacy. Into me, see. That's what intimacy is. Into me, see, i.e. into you. Does he see? If he doesn't, red flag. Red flag. Possessiveness. Again, this goes back to this idea of total understanding of everything that you're doing today. And some of these guys are going to lengths today where, they're putting trackers on, these Apple trackers on cars. So it's really dangerous if you veer out of that path, and then you're confronted by it through a fit of jealousy. And typically during those raging battles, i.e. fights, then there's always these threats. I'll kill myself, or I'll kill A, B, C, or D. I had a call one time where I went to the window of the front door, and there was a window on the side of the door, and I looked through, and I was with a guy named Clint Johnson. And I looked through the window, and this husband had his wife on the floor, and he was on top of her, choking her. And he was literally, trying to kill her. And so that's the exigent circumstances in California. And so you can do what they call 844 the door, and i.e. kick it in. And so we kicked the door in, and we got him. I pulled him off of her, hooked him up. And as I'm walking him out of the house, she comes up behind me with a frying pan and hits me in the head with this frying pan. And, of course, now she's going to go to jail, unfortunately, for, assaulting. But when I got her back to the car, and man, I have a really hard head, if you haven't noticed. She almost knocked me out. I mean, I was, doing the whirly bird for a couple seconds there, and Clint hooked her up, and I'm like, what the heck just happened? And, she was crying, and, I was trying to figure out, what the heck's going on here. Anyway, we got her in the car. We got him in the car. And I went over to her and I opened the door, and she's just, just breaking down and apologizing, et cetera. But she was so scared that, if he got back out, that she wanted to go to jail. And so that's why she hit me. And so this is how possessive these guys become, that they put so much pressure into the relationship and on the victim that they feel helpless. So please empower yourself. Please empower yourself. As difficult as it may sound, somebody out there will help. Somebody will help you. Okay? A friend, a trusted confidant, somebody will help you. Okay? Isolation of victims from the friend and from their friends and families. So if you see a guy start trying to pull you away from relationships rather than, again, intimacy, pulling you into it, that is a huge red flag. That is a huge red flag. So, I mean, if we look at these wackadoodles, like Chad and Lori, I think if we were to do a behavioral analysis on how that relationship, kind of formulated itself, around some wacky, religious ideas, and then that kind of morphed into, this pulling away from friends and family, and actually, obviously today now we have evidence that they were marking their own her children and other family members. And so those are the kind of things that are huge flags. Okay. I think we'll probably see some of that with the domestic, the gal who just wrote the book about living with grief after your husband dies. Well, meanwhile, she's dropping, the Michael Jackson stuff in his drinks, propofol. And so it's kind of like, what are going to be the dynamics of that relationship? That I assure you that there was a lot of isolation going on between her family and his family. And that is a huge red flag. So if you see that, make sure, you get out of that relationship. And then in conjunction with that, they start enforcing routines on the family or you, i.e., where are you going? Well, I'm going to the store. Okay, how long are you going to be back? How long are you going to take? Okay. Alcohol starts coming in. And this is when there's the threats to pets, to children. All of these threats of any kind are unacceptable. Get out of there, get to a safe place, like Barbie says. Again, this goes back to the quick temper and the thin-skinned in step 2. They start getting jealous very easily. If you have a guy who's insecure, just run. If he can't compliment you up front, and I will tell you, and my sweetheart who's sitting right over here, we were at an event one time where a Navy SEAL walked up to her and goes, "How long have you been married?" And I'm like, "Oh, she'll handle this." And she goes, "Long enough," and I just looked at him and said, "Nice try, G.I. Joe, nice try." That's the advantages of, having a beautiful wife. And so she handled it. I don't have to get involved. She knows what she's doing. So drug and alcohol becomes a big problem within these types of possessive relationships. Not casual, but exasperated, or a lot. I can't talk right now. Okay. A lot. They start to overdrink, and you start seeing that side of the secret life start to roll out. Okay. And by the way, the Navy SEAL was a lot better looking than me. So I was lucky. I'm teasing. Hey. Depression can set in. And it's, it gets to a place where it becomes uncontrollable for the guy. It becomes uncontrollable for him. So what they do is they shift and they transfer that anger, that hopelessness, that loss through the alcohol into a domestic, explosion. Okay? Into a domestic explosion. And you cannot take a chance and allow them to have a second chance. You can't do it. It's like blowing out a light bulb. I can't tell you how many domestics I went to as a patrol officer where this was before the law, 273.5 came in, where it became mandatory that you had to make an arrest. We used to, the law was that you could separate them, and typically the wife would go to a friend or her parents' house. But within 4-6 hours, we were back at the house. And that's when we would hook somebody up. But when the law changed, it was in California, it was 273.5. It became a felony. That even if you grabbed her, you're under arrest, and it's still in place today. So if you live in California, if he grabs you and threatens you in any way, shape, or form, hook him up. Get him out of the house, because it will escalate. Step 4. These are what we call homicidal triggers. And these are the things that will kick this malfunctioning relationship into an extremely dangerous relationship. And these triggers, such as, separation, financial problems, ill health, turn into threats and rumors, and social media can drive this quickly into the psyche of the paranoia of how some of these guys can get. And what's really interesting, if we look at Suzanne Morphew with the DNA allegedly in the car, i.e. the Range Rover, what's ironic is the husband hasn't even blinked that there's other male DNA allegedly in his wife's Range Rover. He's not saying, who are those guys? Isn't that ironic? So these trigger mechanisms or behavioral mechanisms that kick off this insecurity within the individual. And I've heard it, I've talked to many doctors, I've talked to many suspects. I had a domestic case where a guy ran his wife off of a road. He had his 3 children what had happened is they left. They got into a fight. She left, went to her girlfriend's house, and she was taking off with her girlfriend in a truck, in a pickup truck. And her 3 kids were in the back of this pickup truck, and it was a camper shell. And the husband went looking for her. And the driver of the truck was her girlfriend, and the victim was sitting in the right front passenger seat. And the suspect came up on top of the truck and then went in front and cut them off. And the driver corrected and overcorrected, went down an embankment. The truck rolled over and literally launched his 3 children out of the back of that truck. Killed the driver of the vehicle. And they had him in custody. The patrol had him in custody. And when I got there and when I interviewed him, he explained to me about his emotional response and what triggered his over response. And of course, it was all victim blaming. Every part of it. Well, fortunately, he's in prison. At least he was, for manslaughter, vehicular manslaughter. But he talked about his insecurities. And, he was reliving before the event and then the event. And when I asked him, tell me a little bit about your life, well, then, he started to open up and separate his public persona to his private persona and then to his secret persona. And in that secret life, he was a very insecure human being who basically felt that he could control the world, including his wife. And that he, quote, didn't mean to hurt his children. And so these are red flags. His wife had told him, well, I'm done with you. Well, that kicked him into stage 4. So we have to pay attention to the first 3 stages here. So watch this presentation again, please. Share it with your friends, your girlfriends, your grandmothers, your granddaughters. Everybody needs to hear this. This is great research from Dr. Smith. And so that threat of separation internally for him was a critical time. So that tells us a whole bunch about how critical this is for you. Okay, for you. You have to have a plan on how you're going to execute that plan and get out. So they imagine separation and they fill in the blanks with accusations of affairs. I'll be financially bankrupt, ruined. They learn vulnerabilities against you. That's right, Angel. Thank you for sharing that. And they'll use that back to you. Okay? But they'll do that in phases 1, 2, and 3. So you'll have enough time to know this is not going the way it is. And it's during those phases where you want to say, let's have some room here. Let's have some room here. Because stage 4, they start projecting that their physical health is deteriorating. And what they do is they project that onto the victim. So they say, you're killing me over here. Okay? And then they project that onto you emotionally. And I can't tell you how many suspects I've talked to that have said, after it's all over, that they didn't know what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing. Okay? So there's that redundancy in relationship to the conversations about, if you leave me, then, I'm done, my retirement's over, etc. And they will even, give you hints of retaliation or revenge to you and on you. And those of you who know me, today's word is gaslighting. But I've shared that story many times. I won't say it again tonight about the FBI agent whose wife was assaulted in a hotel after a domestic. And she was at the SART unit in the hospital, the trauma center, with all the nurses. And the first thing he wanted to do was talk to her. And he walked in and he says, "Look what you've done to yourself." I went nuts. And anyway, got him out of there, told her when she was healthy enough to hear it, "Please tell me you're going to get rid of that guy and move on." And she did. She did. Step 5. The frequency of the seriousness of the stalking and the persistence starts to escalate rapidly in frequency. He starts checking your phone more often. He starts calling your girlfriends. He starts showing up. These are all huge flags. These are all huge red flags. Because you recognize these behaviors becoming more frequent. And the behaviors become more severe and or serious. Even a low-level stalking. So when we talk about Koberger, for an example, and when I say things like, the car where the cup holder had the young lady's undergarments in the cup holder from her suitcase before he was there, those are the kind of behaviors that would indicate the type of person that would be targeting that particular house, 1122 King Road. And that's why when I saw the cinder block in the back window of that residence, immediately my experience kicked in, my intuition kicked in that says, I will guarantee you this guy has been stalking these women in that house. And I'm going to not be surprised when we see all kinds of evidence start flowing out in his case, because his stalking, even though he's not in a relationship, has become more and higher in terms of its threat level. I won't even be surprised if he tapped into their Wi-Fi and was watching them. That will not surprise me. But here in step 5 is where the threats start showing up. And they're very dangerous threats of physical harm. Of physical harm. I won't let you leave. Like my thumbnail says, you belong to me. I can't live without you. If I can't have you, no one can. And one of the reasons I get along so well with my buddy, Josh, is because he witnessed his mother. Now, he was a young boy. He was 3 at the time, I believe. But that was enough for me to say, okay, this kid's been through a lot. I can't live without you. That's that insecurity pushing to the top. Okay? We need to pay attention and tell our daughters those are huge red flags. Huge red flags. And they need to follow their instinct. If they sense there's something wrong, they're right. 1,000%, they are right. And they need to follow it and continue to follow it. Hopefully, they follow it in stages 1 and 2 and say, you know what? New bus coming. You know, I looked in the baggage compartment and I just saw all kinds of problems. I'm not going there. Shut that compartment. Let the bus go by. Let the bus go by. Step 6, you start noticing a change in their thought processes. Okay? What we used to call, look, you got to leave tonight and, let this thing cool off for a little bit. But our suggestion would be, and I can't tell you how many, hundreds of women I've said it to, look, this guy's going to hurt you. You need to get out of here. It's not going to get any better. Is there somebody we can take you to? Is there a family member, a brother, a sister, a mom, a dad, aunt, uncle, anybody? Can we get you out of here tonight? And you got to promise me you're not coming back. And then we'd handle the suspect. But sure enough, the suspect would change their thinking. A last attempt at reconciliation. Honey, I'm so sorry again. Let's take a holiday. Let's have a baby. Et cetera, et cetera. And if he's rejected, then that turns into forceful potential threats and gaslighting and it just kind of escalates. And you notice there is a consistency here in step 6, and that's stalking. These guys are so possessive, they cannot shut the valve. And even though you get a TRO, a temporary restraining order, against them, do not think that TRO is going to protect you. Okay? It is a piece of paper. You have to maintain your vigilance in relationship to separate yourself completely from that environment. And let the schools know, let your friends know, et cetera, et cetera. Look up your local domestic, violence safe houses, areas around you. You got to leave. If you have to, you have to. You cannot take a chance in today's world. These guys, look I read off the names of, Madeline, Maya, Suzanne, Dee, Anna Walsh, Kelly Brennan, Rose Bly, Heather Kelly, Mary Johnson's, Danelle Moss. In the list, there are thousands and thousands of women. And we're not even talking about the Native American women who've just disappeared. So you cannot take a chance. It may be inconvenience, but you cannot take a chance, please. They don't, when you don't respond to threats or cannot respond, then that you'll see an escalation and today's social media, you can actually see it real time, rapidly. So pay attention to that. Pay attention to that. Okay? Write things down, document everything. And if you have a new relationship that you've discovered while you're going through, potentially a separation or a divorce, where you haven't completely, got to that place yet, make sure that you and your partner discuss your ex. You have to have an open, honest dialogue about it. Because if you don't, it could be dangerous. Okay? Because you'll hear things like, I'm financially ruined, you've ruined my reputation. Nothing's going right, i.e., and they'll project this irreversible, victimology or victim. They're victims, allegedly. You'll see that my mental and my physical health is deteriorating, and you'll see it start to deteriorate irreversibly. It will go rapidly in the opposite direction of what that individual you knew, okay, and initially potentially fell in love with. Okay. And don't blame yourself. I want to tell you that while I'm thinking of it. Okay. We all make mistakes. All of us. Everybody does. But we don't repeat the mistakes. That is what hopefully you can figure out in your own individual life. Okay. And so just because you see this person, they're starting to go downhill rapidly, stay away. Don't try to come back and, for the sake of the children. The best thing you can do for the sake of the children is sometimes you have to, get to a place where you go to the courts and say, look, he's not going the right way here. And look what happened in Maya's case, for an example, with her children. He isolated those children away from Richard and Mary Chris. He's still trying to do it. So he's not going to change. They're not going to change. His wife is still missing. And he's still trying to manipulate the children. So let's use him as a model of step 6 on how he does it and what does he do. So these are huge, huge red flags. Okay. Now we're getting to step 7 and step 8. These are the most dangerous times for anyone. And this is when it shifts into action for the suspect. I would submit to you that Madeline probably saw some of step 7. Because this is where there is the manipulation taking place, but simultaneously in the secret life, the planning is being organized. This is how you accidentally find your wife's helmet. This is how you accidentally throw away stuff in a dumpster. This is how you accidentally set up hey, Dee, where are you? Hey, Dale, where is she? Oh, she's in Mexico. Right. Okay. So look at some of these things here. Notice the first thing up front is he is constantly aware of where the relationship is. and he's withdrawing, yet he's stalking. And what I mean, what the research has shown is he's constantly there in your business. So you've got steps 1, 2, and 3 to get away before 4, 5, 6, and 7. So it's important to recognize these red flags, and then you need to recognize that you can do it. He's becoming an increased menace, not necessarily directly at you, but using triangulation in terms of communication. He may be texting one of your girlfriends saying that, you know, things inappropriately about you, anticipating that you're going to say something to them, and then they're going to respond back to him. So there's a lot of triangulation that goes on in terms of gaslighting you. Be aware of that. That's all part of the stalking process and part of the becoming an increased menace. They may leak what we call leakage. They may leak out, you know what, I'll just, blah, blah, blah. Pay attention if you see anything out there in the environment, on Twitter, Instagram, anything that he has put into the environment. When I say he, because 93% of these offenders are male, and the number may even be higher. So this is not a female phenomenon. It can be, but it's typically not. And so you start seeing things popping up in your Facebook account, in your Instagram account, internet searches, those kind of things. He's telling people about threats, or just kind of, and they do it jokingly, but it's a veiled threat. It is a threat. Because behind the scenes, what they're doing is they may be purchasing things, weapons. They may be trying to isolate your children through conversations about you to them. Revenge becomes a motivator, and it may be more within their rigid plan. And what that means is they are just all about getting back at you, no matter what. And Dale is a good example of his wife just disappearing after she laid on the couch and took a nap. And, right. All right, step 8. Everybody doing okay so far? Yeah, tell me you're doing okay. I just want to make sure. I'm going to be sensitive to that. I've been going here before I hit step 8. I'm just going to read the comments coming in. Okay. The sit and spin. I remember the sit and spin. The little deal that you would sit and spin. I love that. It's trying. Yes, I know it is. And I'm so sorry, but it's important, right, J-Dub? It is. It is. Yeah. Here's the line again. Okay. All right, we got a lot of thumbs up, so let's keep moving here. Step 8. Okay, this is the actual event. So this is where we look into this from my perspective, and when we sit down with these guys, these are the various types of staging and how it's kind of comes in and what the suspect will play, and if we look at this for an example, right? Look at the one bullet down there. Homicide made to look like an accident. Homicide made to look like misadventure or natural causes. I.e., we have right now natural causes or a misadventure on both Maya, Suzanne, and Dee, and Kelly Brennan. All the hey, they left. They all left. And so what we teach in our investigative classes, in our homicide classes, what we teach the investigators is the most important thing you can go for and hopefully get is a confession. And, the type of homicide, obviously, a murder-suicide, or they make it look like a suicide, i.e., the gal who wrote the book and she's dropping poison in the guy's cup. Mercy killings, we know all about that stuff. But these are the primarily what is at the end of the rainbow. If we don't heed steps 1 through 3, then 4 through 7. Okay? All right. They stage it. They target using threats to your children. Sometimes the children become collateral to their minds. The children potentially could have witnessed it. And then, most tragically, they blame the victim. They blame the victim. And those are the 8 stages. So, I've had you for 1 hour and 17 minutes on this Wednesday night. Let's grab a couple of questions and let me see if I can answer some questions for you if they're here. And if not, no worries, everybody. We're going to pick it up again on Sunday night. We got another great show coming. You guys are awesome. Please share this with your those that you love around you or your friends who may potentially be in a situation that you're knowing. And thank you so much for being here, Therese. And I'm so glad that you are surviving. You are a survivor. You are a survivor. Stay the course, as we say, right? Stay the course. Okay, show. Sharing can save lives. Teresa, thank you. That's right. Sharing can save lives. All right, so let's lift it up a little and let's go, you know where. Aloha, everybody. We love you. Maui's out visiting with her family. She's awesome. And, thank you. Always our mods. We sure love you, Miss Sophia, Mimi J2, Teresa, Am. Don't we have the best mods? Karen and I are so lucky that we have the best mods. So let's go to Hawaii on an uplifting note on the way out, and I will see you on Sunday night, okay? Looking forward to another great show on Sunday. See you in a little bit.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away. You and me go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down. We're going